they're coming to, or going to watch the recording, and it would be disastrous if I then forgot to press record. Um, okay, so the way I'll do this is because I've got a set amount of information that I'm going to go through, I'll keep microphones and cameras off the whole time, but the chat box is live throughout. So the chat box, if you find it in the toolbar, I assume it's going to be at the top for you. Then if you do have any questions as we go through, then just send them in to me through the chat box. And at the very end, there's going to be time for questions and answers. And throughout, I'm going to be stopping to give you a chance to have a go at some of the things I'm talking about. And at that point, you may well have questions as well. So if you do want to interact with me, it'll be possible through the chat box, but just not through microphones and cameras. As I said, it's being recorded as well. So whether you're watching this now live or catch up, you'll have access to this afterwards, as well as a copy of these slides. And you might have seen in the email that I sent round that I did recommend, if possible, to download either, I think I actually might have sent it as a PDF. So download the PDF version of it. And throughout, there's hyperlinks where it will take you to certain things that may be helpful throughout the session or afterwards. So if you have got that to hand, it'll be helpful. It's not essential because I'm also going to paste the links into the chat box in case you couldn't download it for whatever reason. Right, while we just wait for anyone else who might be joining, because quite a lot of people did sign up. But with the nature of these kind of events, normally 10% of people turn up live, and we are beyond 10% of people that have signed up already. So we might be at everyone that's coming today. But while we wait, I have got, in like true teacher style, some questions for us to have a go at while we wait. Mainly to give me a bit of an idea of what everyone's current experience is with ChatGPT, to give me a better idea of how to tailor this session as we go through to know what I can recommend to best help you. So there's 3 questions that hopefully has popped up for you. What is one task in teaching you wish took less time? And that's also the question I've got on the slide at the moment, which I'm not actually sure how I'm able to see your answers to that, because at the moment it just says one person answered, but I can't see your answer. So I might have to ask for those in the chat box separately for the what is one task you wish took less time. Have you used ChatGPT before? That's a simple yes or no. And then the last one is for me to gauge how often you use it, assuming or if you have used it previously. So for the first one, for whatever reason, probably from my own inabilities, I'm not able to see what people have written for the one teaching task you wish took less time. So if you were able to, that'd be really good if you could put that in the chat box instead. So at the moment, we've got 3 out of 4 people, so 75% have used ChatGPT before, 80% have used ChatGPT before, and it ranges from a couple of times a month. Most people have said a few times per week. Obviously, we're a small group, so when I say most people, that's like 3 people. So then, which teaching task do we wish took less time? Marking, making your exam questions, planning lessons, and finding activities and PowerPoint slides. Okay, all of those I will address. Just started with the 6th form, using it to create short questions. I'm glad you corrected that, because I was like, I'm not sure what she means. So creating short questions. Right, so ChatGPT can be used for everything you've said there. I've found ways to use it better for some of those activities than others, but I'm still constantly using it, trying to find the most effective ways. But hopefully, at least one of the things we go through then is going to help you with one of the tasks that you're hoping to save some time on. So what we're going to do is the maximum duration this is going to be is 1 hour. It might be less than that, depending on how quickly it takes us to set things up, have a go at activities and questions you have. But the maximum it will be is 5 o'clock. So a bit of an introduction I'll be doing to myself and the session, then an introduction to ChatGPT, but the main bulk of the content is going to be hands-on, me going through how you can use ChatGPT for lesson planning, creating resources, and then giving you a chance to do that. And then the second part will be how you can use ChatGPT for admin tasks. And if I actually just go back to the chat box, so we had marking, making exam questions. So actually most of the things that people have written down, I would class under the lesson resources side of things rather than admin tasks. I'm going to put marking under lesson because it's something that's more linked to a lesson. And then at the end, as I said, there'll be time for any questions that you've got as well. So about me, you may know me already from Instagram. I'm assuming that's where most people were aware of me from, either from my Miss Estruch biology platforms or Miss Estruch Teach and Tell. It might be that someone you know from work has recommended me. But just a very brief overview about me, and I mean very brief. I've been a biology teacher since 2009. Used to teach all three sciences, but then in the most recent school I was at, I just taught biology. I was head of biology, head of science. And this year, so from September this year, I actually left the classroom and I now work fully for myself in my online business, which I have the Miss Estruch Biology, which is helping A-level and GCSE students with biology, and now the Miss Estruch Teach and Tell, where I help teachers with teaching biology, but other streamlining ideas to try and reduce busy timetables. And one part of that then was these free CPD sessions. And this is actually the first ever one that I'm doing. So I'm intrigued to see how this will all go and what people think about it. But my whole idea behind it was, as someone that had been teaching from 15 years, I found that when I first started teaching, the CPD options I had were pretty good. And then as time went on, there was less and less available, and my schools were less willing to let me go on CPD events. And from the different polls and questions I've put out on my Instagram, that's been a running theme for all teachers. So that's what I thought I would try as one of my goals this year to try and address is how can I solve some of the issues that I've seen with CPD to help teachers. And the issues I saw was limited availability of courses, particularly since COVID. And I think maybe a lot of companies were, well, maybe they went bust during COVID, or maybe they struggled to get enough teachers to come on the courses to make it viable to run, so they had to keep cancelling them. Then there's the high cost of those courses. They often cost hundreds of pounds, and it costs your school to pay for your cover as well. So for a school to send you on CPD, it is highly costly in terms of money, but also you could argue it's highly cost in terms of students missing valuable lesson time, although there's a balance because the teachers are gaining new skills. And then the inflexible timing of them as well. So that was the sort of thing I was trying to address. So that's why I've created just 3 for now. This is the first one. They are all completely free to try and help with the cover of cost. They are online to try and make it a bit more flexible. And that means that if you can't attend the whole thing or you can't attend live, you still get the recording, which is also for free. So you can then complete it in your own time and do it as many times as you want, which hopefully makes it more convenient to fit around people's work life, but also whatever your home life might be, because you might have people that you need to get home to that are dependent on you and so on. And then I did the 4 to 5 p.m. because that's the one that got the most votes for people that either wanted to stay in school. I think that's the main thing, people that wanted to stay in school or maybe potentially do it with their department as an inset. So that was the thought process behind it. And I actually went for ChatGPT as the first one because from my podcast, that's been by far the most listened to out of all of them since November. And also when I did put a box on Instagram, that's the one that most people said they wanted. And from my own experience as well, I have been using ChatGPT since it came out 2 years ago. And that was when I was head of science still, and then I went to part-time. And I did find that I was using this in ways that people, first of all, some people didn't even know ChatGPT existed. And then they didn't know what you could actually do with it. And I just wanted to share that with my department to try and make their life easier. And now I'm trying to do that for all other teachers as well, because the teaching workload can be incredibly overwhelming, particularly at certain pinch points in the year where you might have exam papers to be marking, you might have reports, you might just be extra tired and it's dark and it's cold. So there's an overwhelming workload. So I was trying to come up with ways to help teachers with that. You can also use it to help reduce the time you spend on repetitive tasks, which can, first of all, take up a lot of time, and also they can be very boring. And then also, and this was the main one I think I saw in the chat box, is assisting you when you might have difficulty coming up with creative ideas or just having to create things like exam questions and that sort of thing. So it's a mixture of the two. It's how you can use ChatGPT just to help you with your workload, timing, but also just, I think you can use it to improve the quality or variation in activities and ideas that you might currently have. So a few concerns, and I'd be interested in the chat box if anyone does have any concerns that either they've heard about ChatGPT or you might have your own concerns with it. I'd be intrigued to hear what your concerns are, if you do have any. The ones that I've tend to hear are, is it accurate? So when you ask it a question or ask it to do a task, is it actually outputting something that you can trust and is accurate? I've also heard for bullet point 2, this for teachers and students, is it going to replace someone's skills and abilities to perform the tasks that you're asking it to do? And I've heard from my department, there was a lot of concern that if we recommend students to use ChatGPT, will they not learn and develop these skills? So that was one concern I've heard from teachers, but also for students. And the one that I've heard more recently, the more I post about it online, of course, I get lots of comments, is it's bad for the environment and you shouldn't be using it. So I've done some research into that. So I've seen there's some in the chat box, which I'll come back to. And then these are the ones that, as I said, I've come across and what I did some research, my own personal opinions on it. So the one about, is it accurate? It is most of the time I have found accurate and incredibly helpful. However, I always check the outputs because I do find mistakes. And the common things that I've noticed are, if I'm asking it to help me come up with some information where it might be about exam stats. In the past, I've seen it say, it was one fact that said 30% of students did X, Y, and Z, whatever it was. And I was there thinking, is it actually 30%? That sounds quite high. So I then asked ChatGPT, where did you get the 30% fact from? What was your data source? And actually came back to me and said, oh, it wasn't actually from anywhere in particular. I just gave you that fact based on the general discourse I found online, but it wasn't a data fact I found. So be wary of that. I always, when I give it a prompt and it's going to be giving me a fact, like a percentage of people, whatever it might be, I always ask it now to tell me the data source. And I also say use actual research, or if it's scientific, I ask it to use a scientific paper. And that's curbs some of that, but always check it. Because even with the biology, sometimes I question a little bit. Is it replacing my skills and ability to perform these tasks? I don't think so. Like I said, I've been using this for 2 years and I've not lost my inability to analyze data, to write lessons, to write exam questions. Instead, it's made me quicker at everything and it's made me able to hone in on the skills that are unique to your profession. And then, is it bad for the environment? So this one here, I actually wasn't aware of this as a concern until more recently. And so I did look it up. It does use a lot of energy for the AI model to learn. So for it to be constantly learning from your responses and train, it does use energy. And ChatGPT have said they're putting in ways to try and reduce that. And then the other concern is it uses up more energy than Google. And when I looked up, it said it's 1.7 times the amount of energy to do a search on ChatGPT than it is on Google. But what I found is if I ask ChatGPT to do it, I normally have to do that once. If I'm finding something else on Google, I'm probably going to be searching quite a few times, so it balances out. And also because it speeds me up, I reckon I spend 5 times less on my computer. Now I can use ChatGPT. Concerns about privacy, data protection, using student names in reports and so on. Yeah, I know what you mean about this because although they might say and they have to apply with GDPR, I would be concerned about that as well. And when I have used this for reports, I deliberately haven't used students' names for that reason. So I've just said student X and put it in bold every time. And then when I've copy and pasted it, I put in their name because although they might say it's fine, I didn't want to put myself in a vulnerable position in case it wasn't, or for students' sake as well. Can we get a link for ChatGPT? Yes, you can. That is one of the things we're about to go on to. So we're going to get the link for ChatGPT, go over to it, sign up and get an account if you don't already have one. And then once we've done that, we're going to be focusing on how you can create lesson resources and ideas, and then the streamlining of admin tasks. So those are the 2 key areas. So here is the link. Like I said, in case you don't have the download, I'll put it in the chat box as well for you. Does that work? Nope, that went as a picture. So let me just try that again. Oh, actually, no, it has worked. There we go. So there is the link to ChatGPT. Most of you said you have used it before, so I'm assuming you've got an account. So you can just use this time to click the link and log in. If it's your first time, the screen on the left is what you will see. And you just need to click on the bit that says sign up. Then you'll get this page here. I have actually just made my account by linking it to my Google. So if you do have a Google account, you can just click there and it'll log you in. Or you can use a Microsoft account or an Apple account. So that's what I've used to create mine. So I'll just give you a minute or so to get onto there. Once you're actually on ChatGPT and set up, if you just give me a thumbs up or a yes, whatever in the comments, just so I get an idea of when we're ready to carry on. Okay, and we've got 12 people live. That's more than I was expecting. As I said, normally I get with the students about 10% show up live. Okay, so I've got a couple of you are ready. Okay, a few of you are saying you're ready. If you have, some of you said you use it a few times a week, and some of you said every other day. That's the same thing. Maybe you said every couple of weeks versus a few times a week. What sorts of things do you currently use ChatGPT for? So if you are using it already, just to get an idea. I'll just see in the chat box what people are using it for already, if you do currently use it. Report writing. Where did your school stand on that out of interest with you using it for report writing? Like, were they happy for you to do that? So Caroline uses it for quizzes, suggestions for what to include for practical plans. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Sorry about the coughing. I'm not even a teacher anymore, and I've still had a cold for about 3 weeks. More explanations, no issues. I keep it nameless. I use it to write reports. Oh, that's interesting because I think maybe at my school when I was doing this, there was less understanding about ChatGPT, and I was using it for reports, and then we were after that told explicitly we weren't allowed to use it. But I think the worry was to do the accuracy, not the data protection. I think there was misunderstanding. They thought we were just saying to ChatGPT, write a report for my students, and just picking out generic reports without realizing how you can completely tailor it. And it basically just writes you a report which doesn't have any spelling mistakes in. Okay. Right, I'm assuming we're probably all ready to go. So let's go to using ChatGPT for lesson resources. There's so many different things that you can do for this. I've actually taken a few videos of me doing it that I'm just going to run in the background while I go through things. And as I said, you've got these PowerPoints so you can watch the video at another time. But there's a whole range of ways you can use this. You can use it to create an entire lesson plan. You can use it just to generate ideas if you're stuck and can't think of a different activity to do than maybe the ones that you constantly feel like you do, or if you know there's a particularly challenging concept for students to get their head around and you want to try a new strategy, you could get ideas from ChatGPT. It could be for creating worksheets, quizzes, exam questions, lots of like active recall style activities. I found it is brilliant for. And someone actually messaged me, I don't know if maybe you'll hear, someone messaged me after I did one of my podcast episodes on ChatGPT, and they said they used it to write their cover lessons for the next day. And they said they could pretty much just copy and paste it perfectly, and it saved them so much time when they were already busy and not feeling particularly well. So yeah, you could use it maybe for cover lesson ideas as well. So you can see here, one of the prompts that I was writing in is going to be on the next slide, so you can copy and paste it and have it going. But one idea is you could literally use it to create a lesson plan, which you will probably then want to tweak and make your own personal adjustments to using your professional skills as a teacher. But it is a great starting point, and sometimes you might only have to do very few tweaks. And the key thing is the more detail you give, the better. So in this example, I gave the duration of time, that it was A level, it was AQA. I think I said how many students there were, the resources I had, special educational needs, what I wanted to focus on. And then this is what came out. And this is all filmed in real time. So this isn't sped up. This is how long it took me to type that and how long it took to come out with these answers, and actually split it minute by minute. Here's the activity, description. And then what I went on to do, there's my differentiation. I then went on to ask it for the activity suggestions I liked. I then said, right, can you make those activities for me now? And that's what I'm going to take you on to this bit here. I did just see a question come in though. Will it actually make the slides or just give suggestions? So it won't actually be able to make a PowerPoint, but what I have asked it to do, so this is oh, that's not actually the exact prompt, but it's a similar prompt to the one that I had on the previous one. I have asked it to give a suggestion. And then I have said, for the bits where you've said explain the information, you now write the copy that will go on those slides. So you can ask it to write everything, and then you would copy and paste it and format it how you want, but it can't literally make the PowerPoint, but you can copy and paste over the information. So at this point, you should, hopefully you'll be all logged in, ready to have a go. What I would recommend is pick something that you actually have to do. So if there is a lesson that you need to plan, or if you know you might want to have a new starter or plenary activity where it might be helpful to have multiple choice questions or a fill in the gaps activity, pick something that you do actually want and have a go at it now. I've got some examples of prompts here just to show you the level of detail, and I'll talk through some of those in a minute. The recording is going to be emailed to you at 5:10, so you'll automatically get it. Can you get my ChatGPT answer? Do you mean for the previous one, Fatima? It might be possible. What it will require is for me to be able to find where I did that, and then I can copy and paste it. I'll see if I can, but if not, I think it's basically, let me just go back to this. I think it was this, but I changed. If you type in this prompt, you should get the same thing. But I think I said create. Why is that not coming out? Or maybe it is going to show up in a minute. Oh, that's come out as a picture. That's strange. For some reason, it keeps doing that. It must be something about the way I downloaded this. So copy. Paste. Okay, there we go. So now you've got it as text. Ignore the one underneath. So that is the exact prompt. But on the one before, let me just see what I said, because in theory, you should get an identical or almost identical prompt. So I said 50-minute lesson, A-level biology AQA. $20 students. Target grades, C to A, A star. Yeah, so you can see the information there. What I'll do is pause it. So if you want to literally use that prompt, where is it? Oh, I've finished it. Oh, and I said math skills is my focus as well. Okay, I'll leave that there. So if you want to copy it and have a go at that one, you can. Yeah, the main thing, hopefully you're able to have a go at the moment. As I said, I'll give you a little bit of time to try it now and pick something that you can actually genuinely use to be helpful this week. I always, if it is for creating a lesson, I say the duration, the level, so GCSE, A level, 'cause I'm a secondary school teacher, I assume you are if you follow me or know of me. The subject, exam board, and I sometimes say make it specification specific because ChatGPT is able to access the spec online. So that is helpful to know. How many students, target grades, any special educational needs, and then I say the resources I have, my key focus. So I want it to be engaging, active recall. I want a lesson plan. And this one I said maths, but it could be maybe you want practicals or evaluate skills, application skills, whatever it might be that you want to be a particular exam skill focus. And then give the topic. And yeah, it gives you everything that you'd need, but you may think, oh, I actually don't like that idea. I want to tweak it. I want something slightly different. And that's then where you're still using your skills and your judgments. That's why I don't think you would lose your skills as a teacher. It's just making you more able to get new ideas and shake it up a bit. So some of the ones to do lesson resources, I think that's the video that plays here. This is where I found it so helpful because I've used it where I've said, I just copy and paste a bit of the specification and say, for this bit of the specification, create me X number of multiple choice questions. But what I really like is I tell it to give me choice of 4, give me the correct answer, and then I want an explanation as to why that one is correct and an explanation as to why the others are correct. So I find that is so helpful then for if you're going to do this as a starter activity, the students can then not only have a go at those questions, but get an understanding of the misconceptions. I've also done, I think the one you can see here, fill in the gaps. And if you don't like the way it's presented, I've sometimes said, I don't want the answers as a bullet point list. I want the answers written as a sentence separated by commas because that's going to be easier for me to format. Or you might say, I don't want it as a list, I want it as a table. So you can even tell it to change the way it presents the format to fit how you want to present it. Then another idea I've got down here is write a differentiated worksheet for year 7. So I actually used this when I was creating a worksheet activity for something I hadn't taught in ages and I didn't like what I previously had. So I said differentiated, and by that I mean I want something applicable for grades 5, 7, 9 at GCSE. Gave it the topic, said what the focus was. I want to really be able to pinpoint, identify misconceptions they have. So put in questions or activities that will deliberately show that and then provide explanations. So hopefully you've had a go to try this a little bit, whether it's a lesson plan, creating activities, coming up with a worksheet, or if it is you're just stuck for things to think of, you could just say, I am teaching meiosis to year 12 tomorrow, but I'm stuck thinking of different activities I could do to test their understanding or to test whatever it is you want to test, their math skills, to test their application. Can you just suggest some activities I could do? Then when you get a list of the activities, if you do like the look of one, you could say, well, I like the look of this one. Could you now create some options of that activity that I could use for meiosis, focusing on crossing over, independent segregation, and so on. So the more information you give ChatGPT and the more prompts, the more specific it is, the better the output will be. And in that way, you can then get something almost spot on for what you need. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next bit? Has everyone had a go at the creating lesson resources? Give me some indication, either like a thumbs up, literally that you can do that symbol, or in the chat box, or if you just want a little bit more time, then again, just some indication that you want a little bit more time trying out the lesson resources bit. No response either way. So I will assume we're ready to move on. If we're not, you'll have to quickly ask me to stop. But I'm going to go on to the next. Oh, I've got thumbs up coming. Okay. So the next thing we'll have a look at, which I was going to say, I think I prefer, this is what I use more, but it depends what my jobs are for the day, I suppose. But more recently, I've been using it for admin tasks. Um, but maybe that's just more what my jobs have been. So for admin tasks, I keep discovering more and more things that you can do that are amazing. Some of the basic things that you probably know already, like a lot of you said you use it for report writing already, which I think is an amazing use of it. But I use it loads for emails. And this isn't because I just can't be bothered to write an email anymore. It's because I am horrendous at typos. And if you follow me on any of my social media platforms, you'll have noticed that because I guarantee I have one typo a week because I'm not someone that's a perfectionist. I'm get it done, get the information out there, and done is better than perfect. So I always have typos. So if it's an email where I'm like, probably shouldn't have a typo in this email, I'll copy and paste what I've written, put it into ChatGPT and say, can you just check this email and suggest any improvements to make the point I'm trying to get across clearer? Or if I'm worried that the tone might not be quite right and I'm coming across in a way I don't want to come across, I say that to ChatGPT as well. Like, can you spell check this? Make sure it's clear, but also I want to come across in this way, whether that is friendly, polite, professional, just to make sure I'm not coming across incorrectly, because that can happen in texts and emails and so on. Meeting minutes. That one I'm going to come back to because when I was writing this session and I did my podcast, I was just thinking, oh, it'd be really useful because someone can just type as they go, put it into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT can write it up formally. But I've come up with a whole other way to do this, which has blown my mind. And lesson evaluations, if you're writing up a lesson observation, lots of things. So I think what's been running here at the moment has been showing you an email. There we go. I think, oh, this was an example. If you've got a difficult email that you need to write, where it might be about, and this is like maybe if you are a line manager, for example, and there's been some conflict maybe with a parent or a member in staff and a student, and the way you write it is important so that you don't make the situation worse, then it could be useful if you write your email first or even get the guidelines for it to say, I want to make sure it's polite and professional, but my point needs to come across quite firmly. Then this could be a good start point or a good way to check. So I found it helpful for that. This one was an idea of reports. And again, like I said, I don't use proper names. So you could just use a fake name every time. John Smith, gone very old school there. Study plans. So I've used it to help my form students to come up with study plans when they were struggling. So I showed that to students rather than me having to write them a study plan. Risk assessments, it is amazing for writing risk assessments. I don't know if you have to do that for your subject or maybe technicians do, but for you to write a risk assessment, it can take a lot of time and research. It can write a really good risk assessment incredibly quickly. Which I'd be inclined, oh, this is where it's like, well, would you tell students about this then? Because this is one of the skills they have to have for the practicals for A-level biology, and they could technically copy and paste this, and then they haven't done it themselves. And I don't feel morally wrong doing it for me as a teacher because I'm not being graded on my ability to write a risk assessment. I just have to write it and use my professional judgment to say it will keep people safe. Whereas a student is being judged on their ability to write it. So I don't think I would share with students that they can do that because they are being assessed on their ability to do this. Whereas we aren't as a teacher, we're using our opinion and skills. So here's some admin tasks to have a go at. And again, you may or may not have something that you actually have to do, which will be useful. So here are the first three I came up with, and that's what I've got running in this video. But I started to come up with even more ideas, which is why I added to this. So one thing that I discovered, which you might have seen on my Instagram reel, is on the free version of ChatGPT, I think you're allowed to upload 3 photos a day, and it can turn those photos into an electronic version. So if you are having a meeting and you've handwritten meeting minutes, you can take a photo of those meeting minutes. You need to get like the photo from your phone onto your device, or you can actually use ChatGPT on your phone. But the way I did it was I've actually got WhatsApp on my phone and on my laptop. So I send WhatsApp messages to myself where it's a file I want to have on my device, on my laptop. So I took a photo on my phone, I then WhatsApped myself and opened it on my desktop version, but you could just do that by email. You then, if you have a look here, there's that paperclip symbol. So that's where you can actually add an attachment as a photo. And I then just said, here's a photo of my meeting minutes. I want you to turn this into an electronic copy. And it word for word, even though I've got awful handwriting, wrote out the meeting minutes. And then it made me think I could do that for so many other things. So if you want to quickly sketch a table of results, but you want to have it a neat digital version to put on your PowerPoint, then you can do that. That may or may not be quicker than you creating that as a Word document and copying it over. It depends on which skill is going to be the case for you. But there's lots of ways you could potentially use that. Taking a photo of something that you've written and then uploading it so you don't have to write it again. Creating meeting agendas. So if you have in your head, it depends what your role is. I'm thinking here from when I was head of department, I might think, oh, right, I know I need to cover X, Y, and Z. I want to give a bit more information, suggested timings. So you could just say that to ChatGPT in note form and it will create a meeting agenda that you can then send out to staff. Help to create department action plans. Again, if you have that role that you need to, you could copy and paste the previous years and say, but this year I want to focus on this, 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 and this, suggest some things I could type. Help to analyze test results. There's so many applications here for data analysis. I wouldn't, like I say, put students' names in, but what I would potentially do is copy and paste all of the students' percentages, then give it maybe the typical grade boundaries for that qualification, and then say suggest grade boundaries for this test. Or I've actually used it recently. You might have seen some of my posts where I've been talking about the previous grade boundaries and predictions of grade boundaries. I predominantly did that with ChatGPT. So I just said, ChatGPT, give me the 2018 to 2024 grade boundaries for GCSE biology, analyze this pattern carefully, and based on this, come up with a prediction for 2025, bearing in mind 2020 and 21 were difference of COVID. So there's lots of different things you can do. ChatGPT can draw graphs for you as well. Again, the free version, I think you're limited to 3 a day though. It can create tables. You can also ask it to create data for you. If you're going to be doing a practical lesson and you want to do some fake data, but you know, oh, I don't know, would actually be accurate data for this experiment without having to go and to do research, ChatGPT can make it really quickly. Right, let me see the question. How can you use ChatGPT, or how can we use ChatGPT to get a detailed diagram and mind maps for topics? I always struggle with that for my students. I have actually done that for ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT to make a mind map for, I can't remember what it was, but it was for A level because it was something I did on my YouTube channel. So I asked it to create a mind map. And I said, suggest the main box, the boxes to come off, arrows to connect, and what you would label each arrow. So I gave it quite detailed instructions of what I wanted it to look like. The first thing it gave me from my memory, it wasn't particularly helpful because I think it was more a list, and it then said you would need to copy and paste this over and assemble it yourself. But then I think I did say to it, no, I want you to put it in the boxes, and it did give me a version of that. But again, things like that where it's reading diagrams, creating diagrams, you are limited in what you get on the free version. So it can do it, but I think you'll be limited in the number of tries you can get. So that means if you want to tweak it, you might be timed out until the next day. Detailed diagrams, I haven't tried as much, but I have noticed today when I've been doing lots of creating information for my GCSE notes, ChatGPT has sometimes said, do you want me to create a diagram to explain that for you? Like the lock and key model, for example. I actually didn't say yes because I didn't want it to use up one of my free diagram tries. But the fact that it said that implies to me that it is an option. You can get diagrams. Again, the quality of them, I don't know how good it would be, but it's worth a try. You could say, I want a diagram that shows this. And if it can't do it, it does then say, I'm not able to do that. So that's another thing you could do to try. Right, so there's a selection of ideas for admin tasks. Going back to the marking one, It's limited, I think, what it can do with marking, but I have been trialing this. I've got my biology study club and I set them, which is like an online membership instead of tuition, and I set them a monthly challenge, which is always an exam style question. And because there's a lot of the students and it's all digital, what I thought was I'm going to see if I can use ChatGPT to mark these answers. So I copy and pasted into ChatGPT. This is the exam question. It's 4 marks. And then I said, I said, this is the mark scheme. I then pasted in the student's answer and said, I want you to mark this answer and I want you to tell me what mark they would get, what they've done well, what they need to do to improve. And on the whole, it was pretty good, but it wasn't perfect. There were some bits where it said, oh, the student can't have the mark because they said this instead of that. And I know that what ChatGPT said wasn't accepted would have been accepted. But I then simply said to ChatGPT, you're wrong, that would be accepted. Please correct this in your memory from now on when you do the marking. So the more you check and feed back to ChatGPT, the better it gets. So there are ways that you can use it to help with marking, but I don't think it could literally be like a stack of books and it can mark it. I mean, obviously, but if it's going to be a homework task that you set students online and ask them to give you a digital copy of it, then there is scope for you to be able to copy and paste it. Maybe ChatGPT can do the lengthier bits of the marking of what went well, giving them a target or even better if, and you're doing then just one little section of it, maybe just physical marking or checking. So it could maybe take a chunk of it out of the workload for you, and to an extent it could. If it's going to be multiple choice, then it can absolutely mark it. So if you say ChatGPT, make multiple choice questions that I want set for homework, and then you get the students' answers and it can mark those, it'll be able to do that. Can you get solved past papers from ChatGPT? I think it's going to be the same thing as what I was saying beforehand, because I literally gave it a past paper question and answer, and it marked it correctly 80% of the time. I mean, I've said that as a fact. I'm being ChatGPT here. It felt like it was about 80% of the time. It wasn't literally spot on 80% of the time. But I know that a lot of apps are doing it, like Medley AI. That is literally what their app is. They have uploaded past papers on it, so students do the past papers, and then the app automatically marks it using ChatGPT technology. So yes, you can do that, but the accuracy of it will not be 100%. So you will then have to check all the answers anyway. So whether that is saving you time in the long run, I'm not sure. But it's something you could try out and see if maybe there's some questions, like a maths question, it will mark that spot on, but for other questions, possibly wouldn't. Okay, so that gets gone through all of the key things I want to. So lesson ideas, resources, differentiation, streamlining admin tasks we've just gone through. Quick win. So hopefully you can pick something to trial this week that will save you at least 30 minutes of work. So whatever you've tried today, maybe try one of those ideas if you've got to come up with a homework or there's some admin you need to do, whether it's coming up with a new lesson activity, please try it. And hopefully it'll save you at least 30 minutes. The more you use ChatGPT, the more you start to see ways that you could use it, and the better you get at giving really specific prompts that are effective. And the main thing I say is I do just talk to it back and forth, just saying what I do and don't like and what needs to be tweaked. And that's where you're using your professional skills and judgment. And that's when you get really good output, is when you give it as much detail and things to improve as possible. Okay, so out of interest, what is one thing that you would really be keen to go and try ChatGPT for this week? Again, all of this is helpful for me to know, because if I know what people want help with the most, and then after listening to all of this, what they think will be the most helpful, it helps me to be able to tailor what to give more advice on. Oh, engaging ideas for practicals. Yeah, that's a good idea. Revision notes, ChatGPT is amazing for. You can literally copy and paste the spec, put it in and say, create revision notes. You can say, I always say if I'm doing that, what age the students are. I want someone who has English as an additional language to be able to understand these notes, and I want it to be at this grade. And that I found from ChatGPT is pretty much 100% spot on every time. Ideas for learning activities are explicitly engaging. Yeah, the misconceptions, I found that really, really good for it to say what might be a misconception and can you create some activities to highlight that. Yeah, so I've tried that for flashcards as well. So I made a TikTok on this for students and I did the same thing, copy and pasted in the spec and said, turn this into flashcards. And you can, like you said, do question and answer, or it could be I want definition or key term and definition. And it's really helpful for that. So it could be that you're going to use it to recommend strategies that are effective and appropriate for students to use. Differentiated tasks has been really helpful. Especially, I found that one really helpful for SEND because that was one thing that's been a focus of mine the last few years. I just couldn't find helpful CPD linked to it. And then I was like, oh, ChatGPT has pretty much done it for me. Okay, so it's almost like I read your mind, Fatima, because that is exactly what this next slide is. My next sessions are, so I've got 2 remaining in this first round. Here's the link to, sorry, I keep coughing at you. It's because I've got a mild cold, and the more I talk, you know, as teachers, the more it tickles your throat and then makes you cough. I'm not sure if that would have worked. So let me just paste that here for you. There we go. So the next 2 is one in February and then one in March, same time, and it's on a Tuesday. The second one is specifically about streamlining your workload. So it's different things that you can do to reduce predominantly admin tasks. So things about how to reduce your marking workload, parents' evening, things with your mindset, a range of templates you should be using to save you time, and then other practical solutions. So like a little bit on ChatGPT again, but all of this is not ChatGPT related. And then the third session is specific for AQA A-level biology teachers because it's about teaching and marking the AQA essay. However, as I said, I have got a big disclaimer at the bottom. I do not work for AQA. I'm not accredited or affiliated with AQA. So this session is based on my experience of teaching the AQA essay since the new spec in 2015 and being an AQA paper 3 examiner, but I am not accredited or affiliated by them. They've not approved what I say in this. It's purely from my experience, but my students do get top marks in the essays. So that's that session, but I have to put that as a very clear disclaimer there. So that's the 2 remaining sessions. I did see there's some other questions coming up. What did I miss? There was actually going to be a Q&A bit right at the end, which I'll come back to the questions in the chat box. Other thing as well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to just plug my podcast to you. If you weren't aware, you probably are, because that may well be where you heard me from, but I actually started this podcast. Oh, there we go. 26th of November. That's when I started this. It's very new at the moment. And in this podcast, they're all about 20-minute long episodes. It's every Monday with some idea of how to either try a new activity or solve a problem you might have linked to teaching or admin. And you always get a freebie in every episode and a quick win of the week and a resource roundup, which is your freebie. So that is the Miss Estruch Teach and Tell podcast, which you can listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, but also on YouTube. I have the visual, it's a video on YouTube if you'd rather. And linked to that, some of the freebies that have come up in lessons recently, I thought I'd just give you the links to them here. So just to give you an idea of the sorts of things I give away for free each week in my podcast. So if you want my GCSE math skills in biology lesson, which is an hour-long PowerPoint lesson, everything you need to teach a lesson, that's this link here. And again, just in case those links aren't working for you, I'll get it here. My A-level biology carbohydrates lesson for free. and then my Tarsia card sort for free. Those have been the most popular freebies, so that's why I thought I'd just make you aware of those. While I'm answering questions, that does take us to the end now, but while I'm answering questions, this is a really big plea here that would massively, massively help me. If you could complete this feedback form, I've created a short feedback form for all 3 of the CPD sessions, because like I said, it's the first time I've done these, and it's really going to be helpful for me to know what you found most useful, what wasn't as helpful, what you'd like to see more of. So if I do create another round of free CPD sessions, I can make them as valuable and helpful for you as possible. So I would find it incredibly helpful and very much appreciate if you could spend, while I do the Q&A section, if you could fill in this feedback form now. There'll also be a link to it in the email in case you do have to dash off for whatever reason, but it would be incredibly helpful to inform me on what more to do to help you. Right, while you're doing that, let me have a look at questions. Oops, that have come in the chat box. Here we go. I think there are a few a bit further up that I hadn't seen yet. Okay, there was the first one I missed. How could you use ChatGPT to help with A-level essay skills? I have not yet marked or taught the essays. I find it daunting. I've not actually tried that. I don't think it would be very good at marking the essay. What it might be good at is if you copy and paste in a model paragraph and explicitly told ChatGPT, copy and paste in the mark scheme as well, and say to ChatGPT, for this title, here's a model paragraph. You now write a paragraph on, and you maybe give it the 3 other relevant topics. I think you'd probably have to make it explicitly clear that half of the paragraph has to be AO1, where you're giving your knowledge recall. And then the second half of the paragraph is AO2, where you're linking it to the importance of. So I think for that to be effective, maybe the best way would be to get ChatGPT to write essays, because you might even be able to say, write it so it hit this mark according to the mark scheme, or this mark. Again, though, that's one where I'm not sure how good it would be. It's something to try out, though. I've not tried that. It could be potentially useful. Will you do something for IAL Edexcel teachers? I'm trying to stick to what my specialism is, which is AQA. Because if I was to teach an Edexcel teacher about Edexcel, you probably know not more than me. And I want to make sure that I'm definitely giving accurate information. So at the moment, I don't have any plans for IAL, the International Edexcel, for that reason. I do work closely with an OCR teacher and examiner, so there's potential that she's going to be doing some things in the future. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the essay, Caroline. So I've realised you probably don't know who I'm talking to. I'm looking forward to the essay one as well, Caroline, because I think it's quite often useful just to have a group of people who are all marking it, and then they can talk about their experiences as well. Oh, I'm glad you liked. I don't know what your actual name is. It just says AG3324. I'm glad you liked the one on revision lessons. I think that's the one where I gave the maths skills lesson for free. That must be maybe the first one I did in January. But yeah, I talked about basically how or was that? No, that was the revision lesson one. That was the biological molecules one, wasn't it? And that's where I gave the Tarsia card sort for free. The more recent one was about teaching skills in revision lessons, not how to do an effective revision lesson. Can you email us the feedback sheet? Yes. So at 5:10, there's an automatic email that's going out, which will have the link to this recording as well as the link to the feedback sheet, so you can have a go. And it will also be the recording. The recording I'm going to send to you directly, but I am actually also going to upload it on my YouTube channel. Oh, if I can talk. So you will get a link to it, but as I said, it's going to go onto my YouTube channel as well, so you'll be able to see it there. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we can leave it there. Hopefully you did find it helpful, because I know obviously giving up an hour of your time as a teacher, that is incredibly valuable. It's also at the end of your day, so you're probably exhausted and just want to go home, or maybe you already are home and you just want to go and chill. So thank you very much. As I said, I'd really appreciate your feedback if possible, and maybe I'll see you at the next one. But we'll leave it there for today.